once you acquire your drawings and specifications, you now need to find out what it's going to cost to build this home. So the next section we're going to go into is how much will it cost to build? Now, if you've been around this industry or you go around and talk to builders and stuff, so many builders, like so many individuals, they will go out and build a home based on so much a square foot. And let me tell you, that's one of the biggest reasons so many builders and individuals lose their shirt in this industry. Because when you go out and you start building or remodeling a home based on so much a square foot, you are playing with rattlesnakes, and you cannot imagine how dangerous this is. Very, very dangerous. I know when I first started building, the first home that I built based on so much a square foot. And as luck would have it, my actual cost came very close to my guesstimated cost. And I thought, fantastic, what an easy business. I can take any set of drawings, figure so much a square foot, add my profit onto it. Man, this couldn't be any easier. And as luck would have it, I got 3 homes to build all about the same time. Now the first home, and I priced them based on so much a square foot. Now the first home, I keep telling myself that I earned $2,000. But in reality, I lost my shirt because that does not cover my time, my expenses, and my overhead. The second home, I keep telling myself that I broke even. But in reality, I lost my shirt because that does not cover my time, my expenses, and my overhead. Now, the third home, a little weird contemporary, I had to come out of my pocket with over $4,000 of my money to finish that home. And this was back when you could buy a brand new Mercedes diesel for $6,000. This is when the average price home in Metro Atlanta was $32,000. And you don't think that I had to do a lot of soul searching and digging deep to come out of my pocket with over $4,000 of my money to finish someone else's home? That was tough. And you know those 3 clients, they got a bargain, they got a steal, because they got their home built for little or no cost to the builder. And you know those 3 people probably still dislike me today, while people that I've charged the most money to build a home for, they think I'm the greatest home builder in Metro Atlanta. Now there is a reason for that, which you'll be able to find out later. But to think that I could have gone to the time, the trouble, the effort, and I could have found out pretty much what it was going to cost to build those homes, and I could have avoided those months of trial and tribulation and losing my shirt. Oh, bless God, I can't stress this to you enough. You better have a darn good idea of what that home is going to cost you before you dare get started. This kind of stuff can break your finances and put you in an early grave. When a builder is doing a cost estimate, or what we also call a takeoff, they're going to be finding the quantities and dollar amounts of material, labor, subcontractors, overhead, and profit. Now, material is self-explanatory. This is the material a builder will be furnishing. Lots of material. Labor and subcontractors, most people refer to these 2 as the subs. But labor is just a warm body. Labor furnishes no material. Now, they'll furnish their own tools, but they will not furnish any materials, such as a mason or a carpenter or a painter. Whereas a subcontractor will not only furnish the labor, they will also furnish the material. Now, you will deal with many subcontractors when you build a home. Your major subcontractors are your plumber, your heating and air, and your electrician. Now, one reason I wanted you to know this is when we build the home, I'm going to be giving you an idea of who I generally consider labor and who I generally consider subcontractor. but it's not carved in stone. Generally, life is a lot easier if you deal with all subcontractors, kind of like we do in commercial work, which is another reason commercial work is far easier than residential home building. But unfortunately, that may not always be economically feasible. For example, when we hire a mason, we normally furnish all the brick. But if you hired a mason that furnished all the brick, kind of like you do in commercial work, they may charge you so much money that it's a lot easier for you to furnish all the brick and hire the mason as labor. I mean, not necessarily easier, but a lot cheaper. So you're going to have to make that decision all through construction. Overhead or items you'll buy, I don't care what you build, whether it be a doghouse or a castle. Things such as insurance, permits, utilities. And of course, if you go into the industry, if profit is your motive, but in your case, if saving money is your motive, do not forget to add in a profit. There have been major commercial jobs where the builder or general contractor, whatever you want to call them, is awarded a bid only for the builder to find out during construction somebody forgot to add the profit. Now, don't forget to add a profit if that is your motive. And students always say, well, Tom, how much profit should you earn? As much as you possibly can. There is no limit to it. You know, I used to tell students, you know, if you don't see yourself netting at least 10% profit, I recommended don't do it. And I'm talking about profit, not overhead. Overhead can run another 5-10% or more. This is profit. But I got to admit, with the price of homes now, there's no such thing as a cheap, inexpensive home. You know, you might, 5% may be satisfactory to you. It wouldn't be to me, but it might be to you. You have to make that decision yourself. But I've seen builders, I remember years ago reading about builders in California, they'd build a home for $1 million and sell it for $2 million. Man, that is awesome. I know the profit margin in remodeling is normally far greater than new construction. It used to be in the luxury market, it was not unusual at all to see the builder earning 20, 25% or more in the luxury market. But I tell you, in the current environment, even in the luxury market, I see the builders really scratching to get 10 or 15% profit. But 10 or 15% profit of a multi-million-dollar home is, you know, not a bad profit. Whereas I've seen builders out in rural areas build little starter homes, getting cheap labor, not necessarily building a bad product, but just getting cheap labor and cheap material and, you know, walking away with 30% profit or maybe more. So it kind of goes from A to Z. And you just have to decide if that's your goal, what is the minimum for you to go through all this brain damage. Let me give you some tips on how to find the quantities and dollar amounts of material. In doing your material estimate, this is something that you could possibly do yourself. There'll be books at 24/7 we recommend where you could sit down with one of these books and you could read them. And if you have this kind of mentality, you could learn to do this yourself. But let me tell you, this is very, very detailed work like accounting work. And because it's very detailed work like accounting work, I hate to do a material takeoff. I can do it, but I'll have to work. I'll work on it a little bit, and man, I can't stand it. I have to get up and do something else. But I also want to mention, I cannot imagine you really be able to do this correctly unless you had already had prior knowledge of building a home, because there's a lot that goes in to the construction of a home that you really wouldn't know when you're calculating material unless you had been there and been through the process. So even though you could get one of these books and read it and probably do a pretty good job, my recommendation on this first home is you let somebody else do this for you. So have someone else do the material estimate for you. Now, this can be expensive or it can be cheap. or it can be absolutely free. And let me explain what I mean. The expensive route is you could look in the yellow pages under construction estimators. These people that do these commercial jobs, some of these people would do a residential home. But you're going to find these people to be pretty expensive. I mean, their fee could be, $1,000, $1,500. And you may say, there is no way I'm going to spend $1,000, $1,500 to get a material estimate. Let me tell you, student, one little screw up in this area will cost you way more than $1,000 or $1,500. It could be the best $1,000 or $1,500 you ever spent. Believe me. Now, the cheaper route is you could go around to your material supply houses, and some of the salesmen there will do a material estimate and, charge you a nominal fee. A lot cheaper than the professional would charge you. But what you may have to do, though, is go around to your different supply houses, the people that do concrete work, and let them calculate the concrete, and such as this. Now, the free route is that you indeed take your drawings around to all your supply houses, all the people that will be supplying to your job, brick or concrete or roofing or anything. And many of them will calculate the quantities, and they'll put the current price down there, and they will do it absolutely free because they want your business. I will tell you, if you go this route, which is not a bad route to go, even if you worked on this very diligently, it would take you at least a month, maybe longer, to put this estimate together, because this is very time consuming. And I want to stress, if you're not going to hire the professional, this is time well spent. More information about the material estimate. Even if you hire a professional to calculate the quantities of material, I do recommend you have your local supply house calculate the quantity for free. And I want you to compare that calculation to what you paid the professional. Because even a professional is only human. They can make mistakes. So if you get a freebie and compare it against the professional, you can just kind of see if they're kind of on the same page. If there's a big difference, then you need to find out who's right and who's wrong. If you're having your material suppliers do this for you, I recommend you get at least two estimates of everything, so you can sit down and compare those two estimates. Because again, one supplier may include something that the other supplier forgot to include. And by comparing the two, you'll be able to pick up on this. And I will tell you, when you get two estimates from two different suppliers, they will be different. What you want to clarify is if there's any major difference between the two and where that major difference is. A lot of times when you buy plans out of a magazine or catalog or off the internet, they'll tell you, send us X number of dollars and we'll send you a material list with the drawings. Well, normally that material list is fairly inexpensive, so I do recommend you acquire that material list that could come with your plans. However, do not use that material list all by itself, because I've used those lists in the past and they would be missing major items and just cost an arm and a leg. And it was so frustrating. So acquire the material list with the plans and use it to compare against your professional estimate or the freebies you're getting from your supply houses. When you accumulate all these prices and you come up with a total price, a good little check and balance is that book I recommended earlier, RS means residential square foot cost. If you come up with your total price and then you do the estimate through RS means, If there is a big difference between those two estimates, I'm willing to bet you've missed something somewhere, because there should not be that big of a difference. One last thing I want to mention is estimating software for you computer geeks out there. I know when I went to college, we had the big mainframes, and I had to actually learn how to use the PC, and I thought the computer, especially the personal computer, was going to be God's gift to builders. I thought we'd be able to take any set of drawings and do a quick and accurate estimate. And I remember starting out, there was an accounting software and estimating package called Timberline. It's still one of the most well-known estimating packages in the industry. You can get a list of recommended estimating packages through the National Association of Home Builders, and you can go online and do some research there that they recommend to the building industry. But that Timberline estimating package, at the time I purchased it, it was like about a $15,000 software package. I still think it's pretty expensive. And man, I was so excited, and I loaded that into my computer, and people, I tell you, it was like having a Learjet in the garage. I'd move the wheel around a little bit. I'd raise and lower the flaps, but I never flew it. Because what I found out is it required me to put all the garbage in to get the garbage out. And I just wasn't wired to do that. And so out of frustration, I never really used it. And then later on, I sold it to another builder for like 25 cents on the dollar. And I just found out, I wasn't wired to do that. And so I hire someone to do the estimate for me. So again, if you're not one of those kind of individuals that love that kind of stuff, real detailed stuff, and love to sit in front of a computer screen, and I dare say most builders rather be outside, talking to subs and doing this, I'd be leery of the software that's out there. That's my opinion. In locating material suppliers, the thing I want you to find out is go into the area where you plan to build or remodel, go around that area, find out where some builders are building, and find out who your builders are using. Because there's a reason that builder is using that supplier. That supplier is not only providing that builder a good price, but they're also working your area. So if it doesn't bother you, and I'd encourage you to do this, just go up to a builder in your area and ask the builder, who do you buy your material supplies from? Now, for some reason, and they'll tell you. Now, if for some reason you're afraid to talk with builders, then sit there at the job site in the comfort of your car and wait till the truck delivers the load and get the name and phone number off the side of the truck. Because there's a reason why that builder is using that supplier. Again, that supplier is giving the builder a good price, and they're working that area. One thing I want to say in talking or dealing with a builder regarding suppliers and even subs is go up to a builder and say, listen, if I give you $100 or $200, would you give me a listing of all your subs and suppliers? And I tell you what, if you gave me $100 or $200, I'd give you the names and numbers of all the people I use. Now, as an alumni, you can have better access to that because at this recording, this is kind of a new part of our 24/7, but we're creating a national directory of subs and suppliers at 24/7. You'll automatically see who I use in metropolitan Atlanta, but we want over time for this to expand, nationwide. And you'll see that at 24/7. Your Yellow Pages, just about every major supplier has a listing in the Yellow Pages, so don't forget to use the Yellow Pages. Now, your big national companies, generally your big national companies will always give you the best price, but not necessarily the best service. Now, when things are slow, like they are at this recording, your big national companies will give you good service. But when things are really booming, they kind of cater to the big boys. So you go further and further down on their priority list. So for that reason, I kind of like dealing with a smaller supplier, even though it may cost me a little more money. The smaller supplier will generally give me great service. And I want that material there on a particular day. If it's not there, the carpenter's going to be gone. Now, by talking to builders and just asking questions, you're going to find out who is giving real good service. The internet in a given area is becoming more and more popular on locating people in your area that supply material. Don't be afraid to call any manufacturer direct. A lot of times a manufacturer can sell to you direct cheaper than you could buy their product through a local supply house. Now, a lot of manufacturers will protect their local supply houses and not sell to you any cheaper, but all it takes is a phone call. And I have found in many cases where I've been able to buy directly from the manufacturer and it be a lot cheaper than buying from a local supply house. I would like to mention your buying clubs out there like Direct Buys. I did have a client that joined Direct Buys. I think the membership, I stand corrected, was like $5,000. Now, this was a very large home. And in this home, I will say that that client saved enough money off plumbing fixtures and appliances to more than pay for his membership. It was that much cheaper than what we were able to buy wholesale through local supply houses. But on a large part of the stuff, I found that we could get it just as cheap and in many times cheaper through our local suppliers and subcontractors. So you just have to check that out. Another potential hazard I could see with the buying club, when we delivered appliances and we delivered plumbing fixtures and such as this, it crossed my mind how much of a problem would it be if any of these appliances were broken or something was damaged on them? Would it be major heartburn to send them back, get them replaced by using the buying club? Now, fortunately, I didn't have to do that, but that did cross my mind as being a potential problem, so you might want to check this out. Okay, let's talk about finding the quantities and dollar amounts of subcontractors. Now, first of all, on the subcontractors, I told you the difference between subcontractor versus labor. Labor is not furnishing any material. They'll only furnish their own tools, but no material. Whereas a subcontractor will not only furnish the labor, they will also furnish the material. Now, once you know the quantity of material, you now have everything you need to know for labor, because labor is going to be based on the quantity of material you use. For example, once you know the quantity of brick going in your home, you now have the information you need to know for mason labor, because the mason's price is going to be based on the quantity of brick that you use in your home. So again, once you know the quantity of material, you now have what you need to know for labor, because labor is based on the quantity of material, or is a factor of the quantity of material. Your subcontractors, now what you're going to do with your subcontractors is you will loan your subcontractors a set of your drawings, and they need to give those back to you. And those subcontractors are going to quote you a price for the material and labor to do their job. And unlike commercial work where the subs would come to your office and pick up a set of drawings and then bring them back to you, in residential construction, it normally doesn't work that way. Now, it might in today's market because the market is so slow, but when things are really booming, you're going to have to go meet the sub. You'll either go to a job site or you'll meet them at a local pancake house or something like this, and you will loan them a set of your drawings. Again, have an understanding that you'd like to get those drawings back. In locating labor and subcontractors, the the thing I want you to do, like the material supplier, I want you to find out who the builders are using, because the sub the builder uses is normally the best sub for the money. So if I were going into, let's say if I were leaving Atlanta and going to Dallas, Texas, I'd go into the area of Dallas, Texas, where I would be planning on building, and I'd spend about a week there or less, and I'd ride around getting, to building sites, and I'd go on building sites, and I'd get all the names and phone numbers of the subs the builders are using. Understand, the bulk of these subs are not on the builder's payroll. They're hired by the job, which means they can work for you. But I would find out who the builders would be using. I'd see them on a job site. I'd make a notation of what I thought about their work. I'd get their name, phone number. I'd ask them if they'd like to bid on my home and maybe get a rough idea of what they charge. But again, the sub the builder uses is normally the best sub for the money. I'll mention again, you may just want to give a builder a couple $100 and say, if I pay you $100 or $200, will you give me the names and phone numbers of all your subs? They may be glad to do it. And then hopefully, as time goes on, our national directory at 24/7 will give you plenty of names and numbers that you will need. If you're talking to a sub and he says he's tied up with this builder for the next couple of months, ask him if he knows another sub. Birds of a feather flock together. One drywall sub knows another drywall sub. Your supply houses. Some of the best subs I ever found were through supply houses. For example, a local paint store in your area can give you a list of painters they highly recommend to builders. And a supplier recommendation is one of the best recommendations because, first of all, that supplier is going to recommend someone that they think is installing their product correctly. And number two, they're going to recommend someone that's paying their bills. And a good sub doing a good job is paying their bills. A bad sub doing a bad job is normally not able to pay their bills. But if you need anything, if you need vinyl siding, then go to the supplier of vinyl siding and they can give you a list of names and numbers of people they recommend to install their product. Of course, don't forget your yellow pages. Just about every major sub in an area will have a listing in the yellow pages. Your city or county inspectors. Now, a lot of city or county inspectors, they hesitate recommending a given sub. But sometimes you can just kind of egg them on and they'll say, well, yeah, here I recommend this plumber or this electrician. But even if they don't recommend someone, just say, be there in front of them and just kind of look at their face and say, well, what do you think about ABC Plumbing Company? And if they kind of roll their eyes like, oh my gosh, then you may want to stay clear of ABC Plumbing Company. But the only way you'll know if they'll give you a name or number is to ask. And be a little persistent because they are a little hesitant about giving out names and numbers, but I've pushed them sometimes and they'd finally give in. Some of your local newspapers, they will have sections in there in the classified where people in the construction or remodeling industry will run advertisements. I know in the Atlanta paper, we used to have an area like this, and I remember at times when things were booming, I would go to this section and I'd find somebody that was new to Atlanta. Nobody knew them. They were looking for work and they were running an ad in a section like this looking for work. And when everybody else that was known was just covered up. And I found good people through this, but you got to check them out as we're going to describe a little later in our program. And of course, the internet is becoming more and more beneficial through sites such as Craigslist, where people will advertise there, or Angie's List. Now, Angie's List, I think, deals more with people in the remodeling end. But regardless, now a lot of remodelers will do new construction and vice versa. But regardless of whether you use Angie's List or Craigslist, I want you to check out the sub as we're going to describe later. How to get the best price. Now, the first thing I want you to do is, or the main thing I want you to do is use who the builders use. Because the subs that the builders will use are normally the best subs for the money. Now, I will tell you, you can beat the quality of work that the subs that the builders will use can do, but to beat their quality just a little bit, you may pay a whole lot more money. And I'm not going to spend a couple of $1,000s more for a little neater plumbing job. The sub the builder uses is normally the best sub for the money. Now beware of any sub that quotes you a price significantly cheaper than who, because if they're that much cheaper than who the builders use, there's a good chance that they've miscalculated, and if they find out during construction they're losing money, then they're going to cut corners you don't want them to cut, or they're going to leave you hanging. But I know if you had a plumber that a builder uses, and let's say that plumber charges $4,000, and yes, you could beat his quality, but to beat it just a little bit, you may have to pay $6,000 or $8,000. And I'm not going to spend $6,000 or $8,000 just to have a little neater plumbing job. But you may have a plumber come in there and quote you $2,000. Now, see, be cautious, because subs a builder uses, some of them only work on a net 10% profit. And there's not a lot of wiggle room there for someone to come in a lot cheaper. But I know one time I had a major commercial job, and I had a sub come in and just quote me a price, and I knew from my experience his price was cheap. And I questioned it. And no, his price was good. He can do it. And sure enough, during construction, he filed bankruptcy, and I had to get someone to come in and finish the job. Now, I came out okay because from my experience, I knew what to expect and what to look for. But on your home, if someone comes in and quotes you a low ball price, then you better be leery, and because you may not have the experience, I would stay away from the cheapest, because cheapest is not always the best. In locating your overhead items, and in the workbook there, I have a list of things I consider overhead items. Most of these things you can find by just making phone calls. You can call your insurance companies to get quotes on insurance. You can call your utility companies to find out what all their fees and charges are. And all these things you can generally find by making a few phone calls. One thing, so go down through the list so you don't forget anything. Of course, in our checklist, we'll be repeating all this stuff. And there might even be even more items on the checklist. So please always use the checklist at 24/7, which you can download and copy. But one thing I don't want you to forget is at the end of the overhead items is an item there called sales taxes. Now, you're not going to fool with the tax exempt number. That's the biggest hassle. You got to file that report every month. The builder is going to pay taxes on everything just like you do. However, don't forget the sales taxes. A lot of these supply houses, when they quote you prices, they'll give you all these prices, but they don't add in the sales tax. And if you don't have the sales tax in there, this is a big item when you look at the total cost of building a home. And that's a major upset if you don't have that figured in. So don't forget them. The next item is your fudge factor or your contingency, which is what we call it in commercial work. I don't want you to forget this. Now, what I want you to do is get a price for your material, your labor, your subcontractors, and your overhead, and you add those up and get a subtotal. Then I want you to multiply that subtotal by 5% and that is your fudge factor or your screw-up factor. Again, in commercial work, we call it our contingency. And this 5% is going to cover mistakes you're going to make in putting this estimate together. This 5% is going to cover inflation if we get back into an inflationary time period. This 5% is going to cover a Hurricane Andrew driving plywood prices up overnight. This 5% is going to cover waste or theft. And I tell you what, when I first started using this 5%, I would eat up every penny of that money, and I was so thankful I had it in there, because if I had not had that 5% in the equation, there would have been 5% of my profit gone, never to be seen again. And I don't want nothing touching my profit. And the more I build, and the more conservative I become, more and more of this 5% I will put in my pocket as profit. But I'm telling you what, when I started out, I would eat up every penny of that money. And what I'm saying, if your home is $100,000, that's $5,000 I want you to sit over there and not even touch it. And if most of that money is there, when you finish construction, go on vacation, you've earned it. If anything, add more. But at least it's 5%. Really not fair that I share this information with you and you just get away scot-free. You haven't paid your dues. So here goes. Now in my hand, picture this, I have a magic wand. And I'm getting ready to wave this magic wand through this recording. And from this wand, you're going to receive a blessing. So here goes. Shoo. And here's the blessing that you received. From this day till the day you die, every construction job that you're involved in, even building a little old doghouse, you're going to have total cost overruns of exactly 5%. Now, isn't that great? You don't have to stay awake and worry about it. You now know you're going to have total cost overruns of exactly 5%. So repeat after me. I will always have a 5% fudge factor. Okay, I got that. So if you go out there and you start building away and you don't have this 5% in the deal, and you call me up and you're crying that you lost money, you lost your shirt on a deal, I'm going to show you that you forgot the blessing, you left off the 5%, and I told you so. And let me tell you, I am not sympathetic to any of you that make that mistake, because you lucked out and did it on one home. I did it on many homes before I learned my lesson. So count your blessings. But one of the biggest reasons I've lost so much money in the past in construction is not having this 5% in the equation. Okay, a couple of words of wisdom about the cost estimate. The first one I want to mention is when to be a serious negotiator. When you're putting your estimate together, I want you to have good average prices. Just simply have good average prices. Don't load the original estimate up with bargain basement deals or Felix the cheap mason. Because when it comes time to start building your home, those bargain basement deals may be gone. Felix the cheap mason may be dead. So in your original estimate, have good average prices. Then, at that moment in time, when you need that product or service, let the old negotiator come out in you. And at that moment in time, really try to get your best price. But you know, a lot of suppliers or even subs, they would be so irritated if you came in there and just beat them up through negotiating and negotiated a great price, and then you turn around and say, well, I'll call you in a couple of months when I start construction. Boy, they'd probably throw you out of the office. So don't do that hardcore negotiating until you're ready to buy that product or utilize that service. 3 great reasons for having this complete estimate. This complete estimate is going to become your budget. But the 3 great reasons for having gone through the trouble of getting this complete estimate is now you'll go to bed at night knowing, not wishing, hoping, and praying, but knowing this home is going to cost you $250,000. And by knowing it's going to cost you $250,000, you're going to now know how much money you're saving by building it for $250,000. And that is such a wonderful peace of mind. The other great part about having this budget in front of you is it will turn you into a great negotiator. Because let's say that when you're putting your budget together, you have in there plumber $6,000. But now it's several months later and you're ready to actually hire the plumber to do a job for you. And the plumber comes up, and that plumber that was for $6,000 that you talked with, he either went out of business or went up on his price, or he can't get to your job. So you go to another plumber, but their prices, and they're available, but their price is greater than $6,000. By having that figure in front of you, it will turn you into a great negotiator, because now you'll go to another plumber and say, listen, I really want you to do the job, but all I have in my budget is $6,000. Help me, help me, help me. And he'll think, well, good night. If it's that important, we'll do it for $6,000. But if you're like me, you're going to be trying to get it done for $4,000. Because you know if you get it done for $4,000, that's another $2,000 you'll put in your pocket as a profit or savings. If you don't have that figure in front of you, you will never know whether or not you're getting a good deal. Because if you're building based on so much a square foot and the plumber says $6,000 or $8,000, hey, you don't know. You don't know. You're building based on so much a square foot. And you may not know until the tail end when it is too late and you're hundreds of thousands of dollars over budget. And believe me, I've been there. But I know years ago I was in Atlanta. I was building kind of these luxury townhomes. And on the front of one of the townhomes, I was putting a wooden pediment around the front door. That was pretty expensive. And at that time, we were having an influx of immigrants from Romania coming into the Atlanta market that did incredible stucco work. And they could do a stucco pediment that looked like limestone, and it was just gorgeous. And the stucco sub that I hired, he was telling me about this, and I went to a home where he did one, and it was beautiful. So I asked him what he would charge me to do this stucco pediment around the front door instead of rebuilding it out of wood. And he came up with a price of like about $3,000, and I had planned to only spend about I think it was like about $800 or $900 to do it out of wood. So that was just way over my budget. So I went back to my budget and I saw, looked at a couple of areas where I could kind of cut and, shift some money around. But still, I can go $3,000. So I came back to the sub and I said, listen, I would really, really love for you to do this. But all I have in my budget, all I can spend is $1,500. And the sub looked at me and said, okay, we'll do it for $1,500. The only way I could have known that I could have gotten that done, was to have that figure in front of me. So that figure is going to turn you into a far better negotiator. The next great reason for having this budget in front of you it will prevent you from getting one of those acute cases, those terrible acute cases of the might as wells. Because you see, the construction of a home is very deceiving. You'll get the foundation in, get it framed up, get the roof on it, the doors, the windows, and a lot of this stuff done, all framed up, and you've only spent about a third of the money. And you see all this money left over, and you think, well, good night, Martha. We got all this money left over. We might as well, put this screen porch on the home. We might as well put this marble in the foyer. And before, so this will keep you from getting the bad case of the might as wells, because a little later you're going to find out you might as well be broke, because you are. And this will keep you from getting an acute case of the might as wells and prevent you from building one of those monuments to your bankruptcy. And there's a lot of those in the construction industry.